This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
Scams are not easy to detect anymore. They used to be extremely easy to spot. You could spot them miles away, but with AI means more sophisticated scams. So now more than ever, it's so important for your business to really take scam detection and prevention extremely seriously when you're talking about cybersecurity. So that's what we're going to be talking about today on Everyday AI. So thanks for joining us. I'm excited for today's conversation. If you're new here, my name's Jordan. I'm the host, and we do this every day, and we bring this to you live, unedited, pretty much unscripted as well, helping you understand AI to grow your company and to grow your career. So we are going to be talking today on AI's role in scam detection and prevention with a guest. But before we do, we're going to start as we do every single day, going over the AI news. So if you haven't already, make sure you go to youreverydayai.com and sign up for the free daily newsletter, where we're going to be going over both today's episode and a lot of AI news, because there's more than we can get to in our little recap here. But let's start at the top. So AI safety researcher has left OpenAI for rival Anthropic. So the former lead safety researcher at OpenAI, Jan Leakey, has joined rival AI startup Anthropic after resigning from OpenAI earlier this month. Yeah, just in 2 weeks span, we saw a very, very public resignation from Leakey on Twitter, and he's already joined rival Anthropic. So Anthropic is obviously backed by Amazon with $4 billion in funding from them, and they focus on super alignment. So in his new role, he'll be focusing on super alignment, mission, scalable oversight, and weak to strong generalization and automated alignment research. So OpenAI did dissolve their super alignment group, which was strange, and emphasized the importance of AI safety in the tech sector at the same time. Our next piece of AI news is, well, NVIDIA is closing in on Apple and could quickly become the second largest company in the United States. So NVIDIA's shares surged by about 6%, a huge jump, reaching a record high and bringing its market capitalization to $2.8 trillion, just shy of Apple's $2.9 trillion valuation. So who knows? That could happen today or in about 30 minutes when the markets open here in the US. So following a strong second quarter revenue forecast, NVIDIA stock did hit an intraday peak of $1,149, up 8% during the session. NVIDIA's remarkable growth this year has seen its stock or its share value more than double, and is obviously attributed to its success in the AI industry and a significant fivefold increase in the data center segment. Huge. If only someone out there, I don't know, a year ago told you that NVIDIA was the most important company in the US that no one was talking about. Oh, wait, we did that. All right. And last but not least, a former OpenAI board member has dished on why Sam Altman was fired from the company. So in a podcast interview, former OpenAI board member Helen Toner gave some more details on the drama that went down in November 2023 when we saw Sam Altman getting fired and rehired days later. So if you did miss that, the OpenAI CEO and co-founder Sam Altman was unexpectedly fired November 17th, but then was rehired November 20th, 3 days later. So at the time, the board said Altman had been, quote, consistently not candid. And so Toner was one that voted to remove him, him being Sam Altman, and then she later resigned from the board. So in this new interview, Toner revealed some new details and said the board was not informed about the launch of ChatGPT and that they found out about it on Twitter, which is wild to think about. Toner also accused Altman of lying to the board on multiple occasions and said the board at that time could no longer trust him. She also detailed other employees' accounts of Altman's reported toxic atmosphere and psychological abuse. So the drama is always brewing in AI, but that's why we cover it every single day. We're not here to chat about AI news all day. We're here to talk, which I'm extremely excited about, AI's role in scam detection and prevention. So if you're joining us live, get your questions in now. So thanks for everyone, Brian from Minnesota and Woozy from Kansas City, Fred and everyone else. Thanks for joining us. But please help me in welcoming in our guests for today. I'm extremely excited to bring on to the show There we go. We have him there. So please help me welcome Yuri Dvoinos, the Chief Innovation Officer at Aura. Yuri, thank you so much for joining the Everyday AI Show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, absolutely. So, let's just start at the top. Tell me a little bit about what you do at Aura.
Right. So I drive innovation functions at Aura, which is a Boston-based cybersecurity company for individuals and families. We help everyone stay safe online. And it's just becoming such a massively difficult job to stay safe online. One of the things that I've actually done lately is scam protection technologies. And scams are on the rise. And as you can imagine, I'm going to chat about using a lot of AI to help everyone be safer online. But as a matter of fact, a lot of bad guys are equally using AI, are equally empowered with all those technology and tools, and they make our job much harder. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and it's been it's been up and down, and we see a lot of changes within this several last years.
Yeah, and maybe walk us through those changes. I can only imagine what the role of a chief innovation officer at a company providing cybersecurity looks like, and how much it has changed over the past couple of years, especially with this, kind of surgence of large language models and generative AI. But Yuri, maybe just walk us through how has not just your role, but how has the industry changed with now generative AI and large language models?
Yeah, absolutely, Jordan. And that is the right question. I think the nature of scams, scams is not a new concept. We've all known scams for many years. A lot of times when I hear scam or something is a scam, we think about something like a spammy message or something ridiculously dumb, but that somehow we tend to click. We rarely think about extremely sophisticated attacks that you can barely recognize. Well, now we got to the point where they got smarter and smarter every single day. So what we are seeing is that, and it all started with, and by the way, scams are on the rise, right? So we know that the impact, the monetary impact and the amount of victims is growing year over year. So this problem is getting only bigger. We have first seen a very interesting tendency with mimicking writing styles. And just a quick background information. So many decades ago, everyone was trying to hack a system, a computer or a system. Well, now that it becomes very difficult to hack a system. So now everyone tries to hack a human being or us, typically by impersonating. So their first goal is to impersonate someone you trust, whether it's a bank representative, your friend, or anyone else, customer support, doing a refund, whatever this is, right? Financial institution, they just want to establish this trust and credibility. So they literally are trying to hack our cognitive ability or trust by default sort of mental disposition. And there is a very interesting thing that is very hardwired in our brains. We tend to authenticate a person over texting through their writing style. So, for example, if your mom writes you, "Hey, Jordy," and that is how she starts every single text message. And there is someone that says "mom," and the message starts with "Hey, Jordy." And then, they might use some specific language in addition to that. You almost immediately start to ignore everything else. Like you have complete trust over that message. And that is exactly what's being exploited right now by the scammers, as they are using large language models to mimic someone's writing style. All it takes to do, by the way, is to have several references or sample communication letters or examples of how someone is writing. So basically, you need to communicate with someone. And once you know how they write, and of course, better write to you, then they can mimic that style and then can try to impersonate someone that you know.
Mm. And I have so many questions, and I love that example that you gave, right? Like, yeah, someone could just very easily impersonate you just by looking at your writing style, right? Like, I have so much of my own writing online. I was a former journalist. It's out there, so it's pretty easy. But I'm curious because I think that previously scams maybe targeted larger companies, enterprise companies, because there was more to gain, right? And maybe that's why scams had to be more sophisticated. But, I've even had friends who are small business owners, not, thousands of employees, but just small ones now being targeted by scams. With AI, do companies of all size now, Yuri, need to be on the lookout? Whereas I think maybe before it was just larger companies. Like, are you seeing that in your role?
We definitely are. And this is anecdotally, like, I don't have a hard data on that, but I have a feeling that if you follow, have you followed any of those rumors about losing jobs to AI, Jordan?
Yeah, I might have talked about that once or twice here on the show.
I think this is what has happened to scammers. I think their job has been taken over by AI. And I'm joking about this, of course, but I think what's happening is that in the earlier days, we were seeing someone physically writing all those messages. So there were some sort of call center or chat center people that were trying to create all that communication. Right now, that's not what we see happening. Right now, most of those communications being automated. Think about someone's Instagram account being hacked. What they do, they take everyone within the contact list, they analyze the profile of the contact that you have, and they create a tailored message using AI. So you can send message from a hacked account, can send message to all your contact base within 5 minutes. Obviously, this is automated. This is a large language models dealing.
And I'm curious, maybe could you walk us through in like an actual use case or example, at Aura? I'm sure that you have many clients, some you can talk about, some you can't, but maybe just walk us through typically what scam detection looks like for businesses, because I can only imagine there's, so many now different ways that, companies can, fall victim to these scams. Whereas maybe before it was a little easier to spot. Now I feel it can hit you from all sides with generative AI, but maybe could you just walk us through, like a use case of, essentially here's what companies like our types of clients are seeing, and here is how we specifically act against it.
Absolutely. So we have a consumer offering, which is a consumer app that is a suite of tools and that has everything you need in order to stay safe online, which is an absolutely state-of-the-art set of technologies that will help you, including scam protection. The way we help businesses is by making every single employee of those businesses more protected. And we know that we all have some portion of our work on our personal devices. So we believe that by protecting every single employees and families of your employees, the overall security posture of the organization is going to be way stronger and way better. Now, what we are offering within Aura is we have a message protection technology that filters all unknown incoming messages or messages from unknown contacts. We do the same thing for calls, which is where it gets very interesting, as we can understand the intention of the call, we can understand the early signals of the call, signals of the scam, sorry. We can also understand that something funky is happening on the call in the middle of the conversation with an unknown number. And then we can identify that as well. And lastly, we're just about to release our last technology that scans every single email in your email inbox. And we have so much, our inbox are overcluttered. So we believe that you have to protect yourself within every single communication channel. And for every single communication channel, we have created a little AI assistant that will meticulously check every single thing you can possibly think of and see if that is similar to other scams. If that is trying to exploit your psychological bias, like, is there any sense of urgency? Is there any psychological pressure happening? And all of the other things. Is this a first time you're receiving this email from that specific email? Is that email looks similar to other email you're constantly exchanging messages with, but you haven't never received emails from this before? So all of those, I can keep going on and on and on. There are hundreds or dozens of those triggers that we're looking at. And of course, it is so difficult for us to look at every single one of them for every incoming message. But it is so easy for AI to augment your ability to recognize riskier communications.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it's a challenging task to take on just because of how easy scams are now. And speaking of that, maybe with some a little bit of humor here, but I love this question here from Woozy asking, and I'm going to ask the flip side after we hear your answer, Yuri. But so Woozy here asking, what's the worst scam attempt that you have seen or heard about? Because I'm sure that they're getting lazier and lazier and not very good because of AI, but maybe what's the worst one that you've seen or heard about?
Can I give you something that is somewhat related to our job, but more like anecdotal?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's probably more, I'm answering the question. The worst scam, the most ridiculous scam I've seen happened in Indonesia. Very recently, I think a man started to, someone has been using online dating, and they found a potential partner through an online dating platform. And then they got married, and the person realized that, I think it was like a week or 2 weeks after marriage, that this was another man that he married, and all of that was a scam. So someone was trying to impersonate someone else, and this is how far it went, which was very absolutely ridiculous. So this struck me as just how creative some people are when they're dealing with scams. In terms of the AI and the most ridiculous scams that I've seen in a more serious manner, I was pretty surprised by the deepfakes. I think the deepfakes are being real. And we can chat about this, Jordan, if you want. But
yeah, absolutely. Because now, so there's different things, right? So there's AI clones, right, which a lot of companies are using, I think, in smart, responsible ways, right? Like to be able to provide training and personalized learning and development. So there's authorized ways that you can essentially, clone yourself. But then there's these unauthorized way, right, which is deepfakes, when someone without your permission makes a version of you. So yeah, I mean, let's maybe talk about the technology side first, and then we can get into maybe some things to look out for, Yuri. But how has just the availability of this generative AI technology changed deepfakes? Because it seems like it's easier than ever before to create something like this.
Absolutely. So if you think about how human beings are communicating with each other, it's really, at least online, it's really three things. It's texting, it's phone conversation or audio only conversation, and then it's video and audio conversation. So of course, with texting, it gets a little bit easier. It's getting more complicated with mimicking someone else's writing styles, but it is still manageable to detect the scam. Now with voice, things become murky, right? Because one can generate a voice synthesizer using like less than a minute of someone's talking as a reference. And then people will think that, but that still doesn't sound right? You can still understand those little bits and pieces. So it's a voice synthesizer. Yes, that is right. But this technology is getting so much better, so aggressively, that I'm not sure if that's going to be right in 1 year. And just to add to that, people add background noise to mask those imperfections of the voice synthesizer. So you might receive a call from your CEO, and the phone number was also spoofed. You're not using the call protection. Okay, you can get a spoof phone number, incoming phone number that is from a random number that says the name of your CEO. And then someone who talks with a voice very similar to your CEO with a lot of background noise, like a New York street or something, a lot of background noise, and says, hey, I just sent you something, I need you to do blah. How likely you're gonna obey?
And it might seem, if you're not following, if you're not following the space, something like this might seem far-fetched, but it's really not, right? Like, so like I said, I've had friends, even get hit with these types of scams, whether it's just email and but on multiple platforms as well. So maybe Yuri, can we talk about that, in maybe some safeguards that people need to take? Because I guess if you get a scam, it might be easier to detect if it's one platform. But what happens then when it starts hitting us from multiple places, and it does seem very sophisticated and maybe coordinated from multiple platforms? So maybe number one, how can business leaders look out for that? And then number two, what should they be doing about that, or common sense steps that they should be taking to protect themselves and their businesses?
Right. So the good news is that multi-channel scams are still rare, or much less frequent than a single channel scam. So my first advice to just everyone across the board is that, as dark as it may sound, don't trust anything that you might think be risky or suspicious. Like if there is a clicking on the link, sending the money, or doing something involved, like just you received a WhatsApp message, pick up a phone, call that person and say, hey, I received that. What do you mean? If you received an iMessage, text them over Insta, whatever. But hacking to channels at the same time is much less likely in terms of the impersonation. So that is a very simple advice that all of us can follow, and that will help, hopefully will eliminate most of the scams. But of course, for businesses, I think the more targeted, sophisticated multi-channel attacks are becoming more frequent. And then the question becomes like, what do you do? So obviously you have to train people you work with. And I gotta say that cybersecurity trainings might be the most boring trainings in the world. Like we all, that is a necessary evil, but I think there is a massive opportunity to make them much more entertaining, memorable, joyful, and I think we should absolutely do that. So just be a little bit more empathetic with your workforce. No one wants to read a huge manual of the question is, how might we make this truly enjoyable, truly memorable? I think that's one thing. The second thing, obviously, you have to have a person inside your organization that everyone knows they need to report. They can write if they see something suspicious. So someone has to be physically present there to protect you. And I think between those three things, 2FA, responsible person, and of course some training in terms of critical thinking. Not all of us know about inability of trust. Like we used to trust everything we see. Now it's just not the case, and we're not wired that way. So I think there has to be some training, of course. You should be safe. Safer.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, because I think that, over the last, even with social media, over the last 20 or 30 years, when it comes to consuming information from the internet, I think we give it just a one-off, does this pass, my own human detection, like yes or no? It seems like, maybe that's a good habit that might become a bad habit, right? Where we just look at something quickly and we're like, yep, this seems legit, I trust it. It almost seems like we might have to rewire our brain as scams get more sophisticated to really look into like, hey, yeah, this video looks real, this voice looks real, this text looks real, but we might have to unlearn some things. So what are maybe some of those key things to look out for? So you already mentioned, single channel scams, hit them up on a different channel. But maybe what are some maybe telltale signs, or, something that businesses should be looking out for that normally you're like, I normally wouldn't look at this or look into this. So maybe what are some of those, not red flags, but some of those things that might be under the surface that we should be paying closer attention to?
Are you still running in circles trying to figure out how to actually grow your business with AI? Maybe your company has been tinkering with large language models for a year or more, but can't really get traction to find ROI on Gen AI. Hey, this is Jordan Wilson, host of this very podcast. Companies like Adobe, Microsoft, and NVIDIA have partnered with us because they trust our expertise in educating the masses around generative AI to get ahead. And some of the most innovative companies in the country hire us to help with their AI strategy and to train hundreds of their employees on how to use Gen AI. So whether you're looking for ChatGPT training for thousands or just need help building your front-end AI strategy, you can partner with us too, just like some of the biggest companies in the world do. Go to youreverydayai.com/partner to get in contact with our team, or you can just click on the partner section of our website. We'll help you stop running in those AI circles and help get your team ahead and build a straight path to ROI on Gen AI.
There are lots of signs of a scam. And just I think adjusting to the reality that you cannot trust out of the gate to most of the things you see and you hear is a good rule of thumb. And then, of course, how can you be on a higher alert, right? So another good sign of scam is sense of urgency. Like if someone is asking you to do it right away, this might be exactly where you should wait and hold off. If someone is applying any psychological pressure, like, hey, I just had a call from CEO, you have to do it now. Like, don't buy that. Just don't react to that. You have to learn to ignore that, because that is more likely to be a sign of a scam. And this is, of course, happens when you believe you are talking to someone you can trust. So calling back, involving anyone else within this organization, double check, and being extra careful is, of course, my large advice. And then scams are being extremely creative, anywhere from jobs interviews, fake job postings, to sophisticated corporate scams. But it's difficult for me to chat about that because they are the variety is high, but the principles always stay unchanged.
Yeah, and even when you talk there about just the sophistication, I mean, it's getting really good, and I think people need to be aware of it. That even if you are a smart, intelligent business person, you can easily be duped, right? There was something we talked about on the show a couple months ago, I believe it was back in February, where a finance worker essentially got on a Zoom call with what he thought were all his coworkers. It looked like them, talked like them. It was video, and they were interfacing, right? And this company, a very sophisticated scam, ended up, essentially stealing $25 million from this company just because of the level of sophistication. So, in instances like that, Yuri, I know there's no, catch-all, but even just when we talk about the future of scams, because I think, we've talked about, as an example, GPT-4o and Google Astra, their Project Astra, where AI models can kind of see and react in real time. But you have to think that this type of technology will also exist for the bad guys as well. So, when it comes to the future of scams, how should we be looking at that? What should we be paying attention to? And how can we actually detect them as they become more and more sophisticated?
Absolutely. I fundamentally believe you have to use a technology. If someone is using AI against you and you are, not using any protection for for a better say, I think you are you become more vulnerable. That's just the reality of things. So I think using AI back to, which is almost the beauty of AI, it helps you to augment your vision. It just helps you to recognize the risk. It's almost like coming up with this risk score, right? This communication seems more risky or less risky, and here's why. I think that is a very good thing. I also think that, unfortunately, we don't have a really good answer to deepfakes right now. That's just the reality of things. Someone is forging videos. It's absolutely doable to impersonate someone's voice, someone's video appearance. That's massive, right? That's the impact of misuse or potential misinformation as disinformation is massive. As we believe what we see, I think we just all have to be much more become much more critical thinkers, and just know about that. Know that you cannot trust things that you see online or through digital communication or recorded communication out of the gate, as we used to many years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I like what Monica is saying here, kind of this concept. I think, people come up with like a family password, right? In case they're ever, being targeted, but maybe, should businesses be doing something similarly? Like, before something is signed off, like, should businesses have like almost like a family password that says like, yes, this is real, this isn't, a scammer? Is that taking it too far, or might we see something like that being commonplace in the future, Yuri?
I don't know. I think we might. I think I think organizations are different by their nature, and everyone is different. If you are a very small business, you're in one place, but then if you're growing rapidly, but you still don't have a CISO or someone who's responsible for information security in your company, I think you become higher on the radar for sophisticated targeted scams, but you don't necessarily buttoned up your security, and that makes you even more vulnerable. So I think, if you're an average consumer, just, again, following those basic rules will help you to eliminate most of the nonsense. If you are a larger company or a larger org, definitely use some tools, or better, invest in the security, invest in someone who can take care of this, or those things gets more sophisticated. And it's just difficult to manage this part-time.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, what not keeps you up at night, but what do you worry about, right? So obviously, you and your company provide solutions, but what is that thing that you still worry about specifically when it comes to AI being used in business scams? What kind of keeps you up at night in that regard?
I think the video, like I said, I think the deepfakes is something that we just haven't cracked. We didn't figure this out. We haven't figured this out yet. It's very difficult to recognize a scam. It's very difficult to understand how to deal with that. It's obviously someone is impersonating someone. They have the exact same appearance, the exact same voice. How do you differentiate what's the ground source of truth? How do you not? Internet has used to be the most free place in the world, and now there is so much misinformation or garbage information there. It's not something that I'm worried about from a corporate standpoint, or we absolutely will. A lot of extremely smart people are working to solve these problems, but I do tend to think that it got to the point where you can't trust what you see. And I don't like that, of course. And I don't like where it's going.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Another great question here. So Monica asking, do you see insider cyber attacks at medium and large businesses? Something I didn't even think about, right? So we're always thinking about, these threats from the outside, but yeah, what about at large enterprise companies? Is that something that comes up? And if so, what steps should we be taking to maybe mitigate that or maybe help prevent that?
Well, I think that this is a separate topic from scams, right? So in insider threats, I think they've been here forever. I don't have the hard data on that, but I think this is something that, like, the Trojan horses, if you will, they have been happening for decades. I have seen mass targeted scam attacks. So imagine that someone has identified 25 key employees of your company, and someone has sent them almost simultaneously a message from the CEO, and the CEO says to do something immediately. All it takes for one person to bite out of 25, and you might be compromising someone else's company security, right? So that is something that is happening quite often, but unfortunately I can't comment on the insider threat. I think it's a different beast.
Sure. No, that makes sense. So, I mean, Yuri, we talked about a lot in today's conversation. So, we went over, as an example, not paying as much attention to, single channel attacks and maybe verifying them on multi-channels. Kind of the concept now that with AI, people are hacking humans instead of hacking systems, and, how easy it can be to replicate someone's writing style, and how people are using, large language models to do that and to, launch more and more cyber attacks. But, as we wrap up, maybe one is the one important, the one most important piece of tactical advice that you have for business leaders when it comes to understanding AI's role in scam detection and prevention.
Just imagine that it is impossible to recognize if the communication is a scam. It is so good that it's, no matter how a critical thinker you are, it's just not feasible for you to differentiate what's real from what's not real. So how can you protect yourself in such an environment? And I think, again, going back to 2FA, not making hasty, immediate decisions, calling back, using second communication channel is what actually will help you to verify that you are communicating with someone you can in fact trust. I think that trust is something that everyone online will have to work a little bit more to gain. And we just have to stay cautious about that.
I love that. So much good advice for business leaders, especially with this new sweeping. I mean, so many AI scams out there, very sophisticated, but some great advice here today on the show. So, Yuri, thank you so much for joining the Everyday AI Show. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And hey, as a reminder, everyone, there's a lot more. If this was helpful, please let us know, repost this, tags, someone in your organization who needs to hear this, but also go to youreverydayai.com. We're going to be sharing a lot more about what Yuri talked about in today's episode, a lot of links to some of the stories that we talked about, and as well as Aura. So you can check out a little bit more about what they do. So thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.